Welcome to another figure week, hard surface week, organic week.
Hey everyone, my name is Ahmed Al-Douri. I'm a concept artist and former instructor at Art Center College of Design, Brainstorm, CCS, CGMA, and various other places. And I would like to introduce to you this digital painting course that I've created. But before we get into anything, I just want to thank you for the support you've all given me this whole time. And with the support of so many of you, I've been able to put together everything I know about painting into this digital painting course. You want to become a pro illustrator, concept artist, or even just a hobbyist, but you don't have a clear map to get there. And that's where I come in. I spent the last 6 months compiling everything I know from my 20 years of art practice, and I've turned it all into a map. Starting with foundations such as rendering shapes, color theory, painting basic subjects, understanding brushwork, brush economy, all that fun stuff, deconstructing the skull, drawing it from every angle, all the way to master studies, stylized painting, and you'll find yourself at the end of the course doing a concept art project based on everything that we learn in the first 14 lessons. So how does it work? Well, you sign up, you watch the lectures, do the assignments, post them to the community page if you want, and treat it as a self-study, except for those of you who have signed up for the weekly meeting, where I personally critique your work in a virtual classroom setting. I believe learning by repetition is super important. That's what I've sort of presented a lot in this course, and the assignments are tailored for that, as adapted from my time teaching at Art Center. And each of these lessons have step-by-step explanations in real time. If you've ever seen my videos, you know exactly how I teach. And this course is intended to be a substitute for a college level course, but you don't have to pay the $4,000 or $5,000 per class, racking up maybe $200K in debt. With my custom design course, you'd be paying a fraction of that. And of course, I also have payment plan options if you don't want to pay for the whole thing at once. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you soon.
Guys, welcome back to Digital Artcast. For all you guys who are listening, this is probably going to be published on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to you all, and I hope you're having some festive and awesome holidays wherever you are in the world. So today we have an amazing guest on, someone that we've tried to get on for a while, but of course, being the busy lady that she is, she's been stubborn to come on, but we finally nailed her down, and we get to speak to Miss Karla Ortiz today. So thank you very much, Karla, for coming on and speaking to us on the podcast.
What's up? Thank you so much for having me, Gordon.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome. Don't worry about being elusive. Do
you prefer Gordon or Gordy?
Oh, well, Gordy. Yeah, Gordy's fine as well. Nobody's ever actually really asked me that in the podcast. The 5+ years I've been doing it, people just
Holy
call me
shit,
Gordon.
That's so rude.
Yeah. Not even asking me what I prefer. What's your preferred name? Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's been great. Just like watching the last couple of years pass, but it's crazy. Like we just were talking about how time just like evaporates.
Yeah.
It doesn't even seem like 5 years ago I started doing this, but the initial goal was just to help people like me listen to other artists and get information off them. But now I get emails from students like being like, "Oh, dude, I'm leaving my job because you ain't going back to school." I'm like, holy shit! Like it's absolutely crazy. It's like, oh my god! Like reading the email, like weeping, like the tears running down my face. I'm like, Jesus Christ! So yeah, it's been
That's
fun.
amazing. So Gordon or Gordy?
Yeah. Gordy's fine. You can do
Gordy.
Gordy.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Since I'm talking about someone for Cali, it's always you always do the short cool names. So yeah, Gordy's
Yeah,
fine for me.
it's true. Everybody always has a cool name. I'm just Karla.
Yeah.
It's lame,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but
Maybe
thank you
short.
so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Gordy's been so patient. He's been asking me for such a long time, and and every time I'm like, yes, but I have a million and one things. Yes, but this horrible thing. Yes, but
Yeah.
So it's kind of a treat to be on the Christmas special.
Yeah.
So we got the red Christmas lights. He got the
Yeah.
Christmas hat.
Yeah.
Um,
I got the tinsel on the back of my chair, so
yeah, it's
yeah,
very festive. So yay, holidays!
make an effort. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's one of my favorite seasons, to be honest with you.
You think? I mean, like,
I
yeah,
get
for me,
really
some things
into it.
between that and Halloween, I think for me,
So
is like
so
a yeah.
yeah, so my birthday's on Halloween.
Oh.
So for me, like the Halloween is the ushering of my favorite time of the year. Cause
Mm-hmm.
like first it starts with Halloween, which is bomb as hell. I like
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome. It's like
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course it's my birthday and everybody's all festive and we get to dress up. And we have a really solid group of friends. Some of them like work in film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like one of them, for example, is Brian Mattias. And like we're all really close and like they'd get dressed up at like
Mm-hmm.
the nines. They always
Mm-hmm.
go so crazy with their costumes. And
Yeah.
before the pandemic, we used to go to this club every year.
Mm-hmm.
And for 5 years in a row, our group would always win, like either, you know, no, usually first in the
Mm-hmm.
costume contest and either
Yeah.
second and third. But they
Yeah.
would never remember us because we'd always be in crazy costumes. So it's been really really fun. Some of my
Yeah.
favorite costumes is Lydia from Beetlejuice. I
Oh,
even got
wow.
like a Polaroid and I would take pictures of
Ah,
people and I would just like all
props, man.
act
Props.
all
Yeah.
somber.
Yeah.
I went as Deanna Troy this year, but like from
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
TNG. But the
Mm.
problem with it is like she has like this massive like hair
All
and
right.
it's
Yeah.
like the most Latina I've ever felt in my life because it was like the hairstyle of my aunties with like lots of spray and everything. By
The
the
Puerto
way,
Rico was coming out. Yeah.
yeah, the Puerto Rico came
Mm.
out.
Yeah.
Quick note, hold on, thank you.
Mm.
My boyfriend so cautiously, so quietly brought me a
Putting the foot
coffee.
down or the drink.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like trying. He's a sweetie. He brought me a coffee. It's like 11:30 in the morning and I'm a late riser. I'm a night owl.
Yeah, I'm
So
the same. I'm actually glad that I'm working for a studio in LA right now because yeah, their time obviously has jumped past mine.
oh
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Where are
handy
you
because
located?
I'm in Scotland, so I'm
Oh,
in the
we're in
top of the
Scotland.
UK. Yeah.
Where?
I'm in like Falkirk, so we're between Edinburgh and
Oh,
Glasgow, like right in the middle.
oh, so
Yeah,
nice. Before the
yeah.
pandemic hit, me and my
Mhm.
boyfriend, we went to. Oh God, I forgot the name. Oh God, that's okay. Maybe we should edit this one because I should.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
No, I'm trying to forget. Vortex. We went to Vortex in the
Oh, cool.
UK.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really
yeah.
great.
Nice.
And we decided to stay there a couple weeks earlier so that we
Right.
could drive from like London area
Uh-huh.
all the way to Edinburgh.
Oh,
And
wow.
we did it, and I thought we were going to die because the cars are different. Like the driver's side is on the opposite
Yeah.
side, and that
Mhm.
really changes everything. So like
Yeah.
I was like on the side where I'm not used to it. We were just like
Mhm.
the roundabouts everywhere. We really thought we were
Yeah.
going to die.
The one time I felt I was going to die was actually when I went to LA because I was on like the 405 for the first time, and oh my god, like the amount of people that nearly tried to cut me off or kill me in those cars. Jesus Christ, like yeah.
Yeah.
LA for traffic is crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous. So
It's scary. I don't drive.
right,
I never learned. Like I came to San Francisco at an early age, and in San Francisco you just walk everywhere. You don't really need a
right,
car.
or
So
public. They've
like
got like trams and stuff.
we got trams, but like it's such a small city that
Right,
like you could literally like be anywhere you need to be
Mhm.
in like a 40-minute walk.
right, yeah,
50, 60 at most, you know? Like
yeah.
and it's like it's just really fantastic. So like I never learned how to drive.
There's a funny fact here actually because although on paper the studio is based in LA, they actually officially are in San Francisco. Like my boss,
Ooh.
Matt Gazer, he lives in San Francisco. I couldn't remember to tell you what part of San Francisco he lives in, but he's in San Fran. It's more out towards like the kind of wine country side of San Fran. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So he's officially in San Fran. Yeah. So Matt's a good dude. Actually, I've funny story with the job I got. Matt was someone I emailed back in 2009, 2008, because I just typed concept artist into Google and his name came up. And so I messaged Matt and I was like, asked him all these questions. 10 years later, he hired me. So, like, it's an absolute crazy full circle that happened.
It's crazy how that happens, huh? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people you look up for towards little by little as you join the industry, they become your peers and
yeah.
they
Like
become
you
your
and Ian.
co-buddies.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have one of the coolest mentors ever. Like, I mean, and Ian's Scottish as well in heritage. So, I mean, like,
Oh yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah. Actually, I met him for like the smallest time at Lightbox in 2019 because I came over to LA for
Oh.
Lightbox. And
Oh.
I was at the Concept Art Awards because my buddy Raf won a couple of awards for his concept art. And
Yeah.
Ian had the small group kind of gathering around him. And I was just trying to nudge in and be like,
Oh,
hey, yeah.
hi.
As soon as he heard the accent, he was like, oh, hey. You're from Scotland. Oh, my God. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's really fantastic. Next time hit us up, we'll be like, Ian, this is hang
Yep.
out
I'm hoping, yeah.
and talk about Scottish things.
Yeah. He's an alumni
like
of the
what else?
Glasgow
Like
Art. So, yeah.
Hagen.
Oh, haggis. Yeah. We'll be chatting about haggis to the coos come home. So, yeah. Ian's a dude, man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's the best. But that's how it happened. Like I remember seeing his work as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went to like a Barnes and Noble, like a bookshop up in Puerto
Mm-hmm.
Rico,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, you know, like I'm gonna check the art books, the manga
Mm-hmm.
section, and I saw like the Art of Star Wars, the
Yeah.
first episode, and I was like, huh, what's this? And I opened the book, and literally some of the first pages I see were
Mm-hmm.
Ian's fantastic drawings, and I
Yeah.
was like, what the
Mind
hell
blown.
is this? You know,
Yeah.
and I had a similar experience looking at Brahms' illustrations, where it
Of
expanded
course.
my horizons into what illustration career looked like. Ian
Yeah.
expanded my horizons into what like a concept art career looked like, and
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness. So fast forward a couple of years, well,
Mm-hmm.
more than a couple of years, and I was, you know, in my like early-ish 20s. I was
Mm-hmm.
working at Kabam, which is
Mm-hmm.
a mobile game company, which is, you know, you don't expect the mobile game company to be that, you know, crazy, but I was working with like
Mm-hmm.
Alan Williams and Mitch Morehouser and Brian
Oh,
Mattias.
wow.
Like we were all
Cool.
in the team and like a bunch of many more amazing artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that like, oh, Ian McKegg is going to have a workshop with Brahm. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh my
Crazy.
God, I have to go.
Wow.
So it's a Terralang workshop up in Seattle I attended.
Nice.
And they ran this like really great story, you know, how to build a story workshop.
Yeah.
And eventually we would like break up in teams and we each had a
Mhm.
story. And I was so like in awe of both Brahm and Ian. But Ian
Mhm.
had a very similar energy to mine. So we got
Mhm.
along very, you know, quickly, very well. On
Mhm.
portfolio day, this was around the time that my you know, first Magic cards had been released.
Mhm.
So my Tesa was released,
Mhm.
a couple others were released, and I had them in my
Mhm.
portfolio. And I'm
Yeah.
like so nervous. I'm like, here you go, Ian. And Ian looks at it, he's like, you're hired. And I'm like, hired where? He's like, I don't know, but you're hired. I'm like, yay. and I remember running to the bathroom. I was so excited because I just couldn't believe it. Like
Mhm.
like for some people it's like, oh my God, movie stars, like
Yeah.
wow. But for me it's
Yeah.
artists. Like I've seen movie stars, like okay, cool actor, chill. Yeah, what's up? What's going on? Artist to artist. But artists
Yeah.
like that I admire, oh, that's where I lose my shit.
Yeah.
But fast forward to a couple months later,
Mhm.
I decided to keep in touch with him and I messaged him again and I'm like, hey Ian, this is Karla, it was from the workshop. I did this
Mhm.
painting and you know, I'm in, you know, I did this. I just want to send you some of my updates. And I just sent him some of my paintings that I've been up to. And he's like, oh, this is great. Wait, you're in San Francisco? I'm like, yeah, I'm in San Francisco. It's like, we talked about getting coffee. He's like, oh, come get coffee with me here. And little do I know, he sent me to ILM to a job interview.
Yay.
and that's how I got my job interview there.
Jesus,
and I was terrified because ILM, like, I'm used to Kabam was a very homey. We were very like, woo! We'd like the whole art team would go every day to go get like some wine, at the Whole Foods next door. Later I found out it was me. I would lead them all to wine. So like I'd be like, yeah, everybody, let's go get drunk. And then, so they all confessed, Karla, we were very sober after you left. And I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or no?
Yeah, bad influence. But yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And but ILM was very different. ILM was very professional. It was very like, you'd say like, oh, let's go get a drink. They're like, no, we're
just gonna work.
Yeah. And it was a very different vibe. So I was like, oh, like I'm excited, but will I get it? I don't know if I'm the right fit. And they also asked
famously,
me,
sorry to interrupt, but I just remembered a really quick icon of like when you told that story before, where they wanted you to learn 3D, right? But you weren't for that.
Yep, I was about to jump in on that. Yeah, so they, I was in my interview with David at the time, Kobayashi, and he was very, very deadpan and hard to read. A sweetie after you get time to meet people and you're like, oh, you're a sweetie. You're just some people are just a little tricky.
The interview face.
Yeah, the interview face, and you're just like sweating bullets. And he asked me like, so how do you feel about 3D? And I'm just like, I like to paint. Like I'll learn it, but like if you're looking for someone to be 3D, that's probably not me. And then he asked, okay, well, how about like doing like matte paintings and things for keyframes, for production and stuff. And I'm like, again, if you need it, I'll do it. But I'm a painter. I like to draw and paint. Like if you need that specific job, then that's probably not me. And he's like, okay. Right. And I thought, yeah, I blew it. I thought, oh man, I messed up and walked out. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna get it. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. And then like 3 weeks after, they called me on a Friday to come in on a Monday. My job at the time was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, sorry, I have to go. They're like, it's okay, we were waiting. You go. They were very sweet. But
they probably, I mean, like they probably also enjoyed the fact that you kind of stuck to your guns, right? Like you were like, this is my skill set. This is what I'm good at. This is what I want to do. And that's admirable, because most people, when they're trying to get their foot in the door initially, are like, I will do anything. I will learn any program. And that's the whole canvas for an art trainer, right?
Yeah, I think like for me, it's always been a pursuit of what makes me happy. And and it's not that I'm like an immovable, artist. It's like, nah, I will never learn, like I will, like if you really need me, if that's a skill that you need, and it's a job that I love enough, because that's the other thing, I gotta really love it. Then I'll jump in and I'll try it out. And I did learn a little bit of ZBrush while I was at ILM, but I still was like, no, I still like to just paint it all. So there is a part of me recently that I'm like, I kind of want to learn a little bit more of 3D, specifically Blender, because then I can build my own references. And then I can just, build my references and then paint from the references, not on top of it, because then it takes out the challenge for me.
Of course.
But like, I think that would be cool to do. So I might do this holiday. I might learn a bit.
I mean, like Blender is absolutely popping off at this point, and with the Adobe Suite now buying the Substance guys, and they're making Substance Modeler, and there's just so many avenues to make things easier to get into or learn. And but then I've seen the opposite thing, right? Where like I've seen people I know, like the two Pablos, famously from London ILM, like like they obviously have so much 3D in their stuff now. There's almost like it robs them of their 2D artistry, right? So it's like it's hard to keep that balance, right?
Yeah, I think I mean, if it makes them happy, and the results are always spectacular, then that's the thing. But I am excited, especially because I've been talking a lot lately with Sean Silvestri, because he's trying a lot of different things. He's always think of him as like a tinkerer. He's always tinkering here, tinkering there. And he was telling me about like Oculus and how like he uses like the 3D tools to sculpt. And I'm
Right.
like, that does sound cool.
Yeah.
So my boyfriend, he's a game designer, so he has all the gadgets. So I'm just like, I'm gonna, maybe that's what I do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna try
Yeah.
sculpting here and see what I can make.
Sean, another Scotsman, another guy.
He's out there.
Yeah. Many years spent in London, but yeah, the guy's originally from Fife, so yeah. It's funny.
Yeah. You guys got up in Scotland. You guys have a really good group of artists up there. You got
also Paul Canavan as well, because Paul interviewed you not too long ago.
Paul.
Yeah.
Paul's a sweetie. Yeah.
But bunch of dudes up, and then of course this is the home of Rockstar North, who are the Grand Theft Auto creators. So I mean, like, there's a whole legacy up here.
Do y'all hang out every once in a while?
Yeah, we occasionally get together. But then, of course, with the pandemic and COVID, it's been a bit shit.
Yeah.
Try to go. Edinburgh, especially at one point, was really badly hit with it. So, we're getting there. We're getting. But I'm actually trying to at one point try and get an event over here to get people to come and have industry workshop style, but in Scotland. So,
can I have a suggestion?
Yes, indeed.
Can I suggest something really quick?
Yes, go for it.
So back in San Francisco, right here, we did an event. Oh, can I curse on this? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I never know. But yeah, like, so in San Francisco, we used to have. We don't have it anymore due to the pandemic, but hopefully in 2022, depending on how things go, we'll bring it back up. But back like maybe 7 years ago, I realized, there's a lot of great artists in San Francisco, and we only meet at conventions. Ooh, what the fuck? So, I've tried hosting drink and draws forever, but it never really worked because people draw all the time for a living. They just want to relax. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to host an event, and we called it the Fuck It All. And it was like a monthly event where we just jump around different bars in different areas of San Francisco. And just meet and hang out, between artists, and then that's it. No drawing, no. People will be like, "Can I bring my sketchbook?" It's like, yeah, but we're all gonna be drinking, so you're gonna be a little lonely. But that's, if you want to do it, don't worry, you can do it. We all understand. Nobody would ever bring their sketchbook too busy just seeing each other, and that went on for about 6 years straight. And it expanded over to Vancouver had one for a second. LA has one. So like, you should do it. You should do it.
Yeah. I mean, like the funny thing about fuck it all. Yeah. The funny thing I found with you and me are rare specimens, right? We're extroverts as artists, right? And I'm totally, because especially living in Scotland, like, you've got to learn to speak up for a young age. But like, a lot of the guys I know who are super awesome artists are so introverted and so focused on their work. It's hard to pull them out the room and sit them in a pub. Like, it's so hard.
No, that's okay. So what I've learned is people may not always make it, especially the introverts, but they're always really glad it's happening, and eventually they'll make it. And I think it's like one of those things where it's like, and I've learned, even recently, I've read an NPR article about like, why is it so hard to make friends as an adult? And like, the things that they recommend, things that they recommend are literally make events. Make gatherings, facilitate that. And I've noticed that that's the thing that like most artists or most people in general, they just don't want to facilitate things because they're too busy with their lives. But if you get one asshole who like this, like, it's good, I'm gonna make an event, everybody come over, people eventually come, and it's crazy. We used to have there was one that was just like insane, where it's like there was a convention that was happening up in San Francisco, and it coincided, and we had taken over an entire bar, and it was like about like 55 artists there, and it was just like, what the fuck? But sometimes it can be like 2 or 3, and then it's just like it's a night out with like close friends. I'm just gonna drink a little chat. So it's always enjoyable regardless of the size. So Gordy, do Scotland, fuck it all, and like next year I'll drop by one of them.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, like,
and we'll go hard.
We will. You have no idea with Scotland how hard we go.
I'm Puerto Rican, my friends. We are the land of rum.
Well, okay, I'll give you that much. Yeah.
But Scotland go hard. You guys go real hard.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like it's hard for us as well, because like even in San Fran, like, I don't know what the population is, but like in the whole of Scotland, right, it's 5 million people. So like, you look at the community of artists that's in there that's like so small that's, you know, there's maybe something like at one point, I don't know, 50,000 professional artists working in the country, and, you know, like half of them are 3D, a third of them are UI or whatever. Then you try to get some of the 2D dudes, and yeah, it's harder, I think, because also within Scotland we're so scattered, right? Glasgow and Edinburgh and Aberdeen are all like within 30-40 miles of each other. But but I want to do something like that. I want to try and get some more regular social events, because, you know, especially because Daniel and that stopped industry workshops in London, it's been a while since we've had a proper event. THU is cool, like, I mean, that was happening at one point, and so I mean, within Europe there's still stuff to go to, and IMAG and Playgrounds, so there's a bunch of still events going, but
and that's, and as we all get, like, you know, vaccinations continue and boosters continue, like things things are kind of normalized. San Francisco's been pretty good at it. Like, I think we have like some of the highest rates vaccination rates in the country, and it's starting. I mean, everybody still wears masks out here, so it's like, I think people just got used to it. But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I've been going to restaurants again, and we've been seeing friends again, and it's like, oh, normalcy. Sort of, it's because there's still the lingering ghost of, you know, a pandemic. And in some places it's not a ghost, it's a very, very, you know, intimidating presence. But I'm hoping that 2022 will really start to see more events happen and gatherings.
Aren't we all hoping that's going to be the case? Jesus Christ. For real, man. Like,
I want to take my Japan trip. Shit.
Oh shit, man. I had my tickets booked to the Japanese THU, and I was so looking forward to it. And oh my god, like,
it's been my dream to visit Japan for like for as long as I remember. And in 2020, I had actually saved, and I was going to do 3 months in Japan around the fall. And then, you know what happened in 2020. So.
Of course. Yeah. We're all aware.
So I'm hoping that next year I'll be able to retake that dream and
3 months,
do a little Japanese trip, and, you know, I just want to be like a nomad and just like go to different places and just paint. Of course. And like,
there's so many. We were planning to go out there at one point to work, and it never ended up falling through. But there's so many channels now I follow that do blogs from Japan, like Todoki Traveler, Hannah. What's Hannah's second name? But currently Hannah, and then Abroad in Japan. There's like a couple of really good channels from guys who went across. Chris, like, so there's a bunch of things I follow, and Joey the anime guy, because obviously I love anime, so I found him super early. But like, man, there's so many good dudes across there, and like, I think that's the idea behind it, is that it's one of these places you can get lost for a couple of months, just tour. So
and I want to try it. Like, I want to go from like the depths of like Tokyo, you know, crazy city, to like more like laid back, like, you know, like landscapes up in the country, and then go to like the really old, like, you know, old temples, and I want to go to like you know, the forests, and, you know, take a look at like you know, Studio Ghibli, and be like, can I look at some stuff over here, you know, like, I want to.
I mean, like, there's also Tokyo Disney, and they've just opened up the Nintendo World as well. Nintendo and Osaka.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can go hang out with Mario.
Man. There's so much over there. Yeah. Actually, I really loved years ago when I watched Chris Broad, where Chris done the whole thing where he cycled from the top of Japan all the way to the bottom.
I hadn't seen that one. Yeah, holy crap.
Yeah, he done Journey Across Japan, where he cycled from the top of Japan all the way down to the islands at the south. And that was crazy. That was a huge undertaking. It was like 20 videos. But yeah, Japan has so much beauty. My God, there's
and food. Holy shit! I am like, so I'm constantly on the hunt for good ramen, good takoyaki, good sushi. Oh, just everything. It's so good. I could eat Japanese.
I mean, San Fran, because they had a big influx at one point of Japanese expats as well. So like, there's got to be. We have
our own J-town, so we do have like, but it's you know, everything in San Francisco, we have it. It's just a little bit smaller, you know,
of course,
than like you know, other places. Like, for example, LA has a gigantic Japanese community. It has a gigantic Korean community. In San
Yeah.
Francisco, it's all kind of like, mushed in into a couple areas here and there where you
Yeah.
have like maybe a little sprinkling here, a little sprinkling
Yeah.
here, a large community here. But even when I say large community, it's still like, 3 or 4, city blocks. It's not
Yeah.
the biggest, but it does have a lot of really wonderful things.
Yeah.
It has some amazing sushi. It has an
Mm.
amazing little like indoor mall with like beautiful hidden gems. It has
Yeah.
like some of my favorite okay, so I don't know if this is exactly Japanese, but it has like
Mm.
something called mochi donuts. And
Yeah. Yeah.
those are like donuts that like have mochi in it, and so it creates like a
Yeah.
super nice like kind of like spongy or kind of
Yeah.
chewy kind of stuff. It's really
Yeah.
good. Oh
Yeah,
man,
man.
I'm hungry now.
There's a dude when I was in LA, everybody was like, because I was staying near Koreatown. They're like, dude, you have
Yeah,
to have
yeah.
Korean barbecue. And I was like,
Oh
dude,
yes.
I'm vegetarian. I can't have
Oh,
meat.
oh no! I'm sorry. I'm a dirty kind
You're
of a.
fine. You're okay. You're all good. You do your thing. I've
But
learned not to preach. Yeah. Yeah.
but you can always. I mean, it's hard. Definitely Korean barbecue is super hard. But
Mm.
like, if you put like kimchi on top
Mhm.
and then kind of like roast it, that's
Yeah.
really good. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like most places, actually, I was surprised even when I was there, they had a ton of vegan options
yeah,
and just
yeah.
veggie stuff in general. There was just so much
Mhm,
going on.
mhm.
But then, like, yeah, it's the same over here. Even Scotland now, like, we have like McDonald's, Burger King, right, and they all have their own version of like Whoppers and chicken burgers that are
Mhm.
either soy or tofu. So
That's awesome.
there's plenty of options, man. There's definitely enough stuff to keep people going. I'm not starving.
That's
Like, if you can
good.
see me, like, I'm definitely not wasting away.
Well, I'm happy. I'm glad for you.
Yeah.
It's always really enjoyable. Like the vegan options are just so good.
Mhm.
And I've had like some dishes out here that are just like spectacular.
Yeah.
There's a really good vegan restaurant up in San Francisco called
Mhm.
Gracias Madre, which is like a vegan Mexican, and
Ooh,
it's just mind-blowingly good. You're just
really
like,
good.
"Oh, I do not miss anything. This is like its own
Yeah.
amazing flavor." It's really, really good. Yeah. They also
Yeah,
got
man.
vegan sushi out here, and it's really good.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. Yeah. Well, the
Yeah. No.
majority of that meal is rice anyway. So I mean, like, you're just having to substitute a
You're
wee bit. But
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's all just like a play on like textures and flavors, and
Of
it's
course.
just fantastic.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got food on my mind too because like, the holidays are always a time where like you're cooking a lot, and I think the
Yeah.
pandemic it affected people in many different ways. For
Mhm.
me, I lost my love for cooking
Oh
because I
yeah.
used to cook all the time. I used to love
Mhm.
throwing like gatherings of people and love to cook for friends and like my
Mhm.
loved ones. But something about the pandemic, I just don't,
Yeah.
but I'm slowly regaining it back. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very excited. I got like some
Yeah.
sugar pumpkins. So I kind of want to do a pumpkin soup coming up.
Oh wow, nice.
Hey,
Perfect weather for it. Yeah.
I
But
know
then,
it's
yeah, I
nice.
mean, like, it's the cold. You need it. But then, like, cold in San Fran is not like cold in Scotland. That's
Oh
like a
God,
different.
no, no.
Yeah.
We're like, it's cozy weather out here. Out
Yeah.
there, you guys are like tundra.
Yeah, I think we're like -1 at one point during the week. It was so cold, like
That's
1 or 2
so
degrees,
stupid.
degrees Celsius. So it's like so cold. Like, we're
That's
so close to that.
why.
Yeah, there's like, it's funny when
Oh,
you look in the map. There's like Scotland and there's like Russia, and we're actually closer to the Arctic Circle than Russia. It's
are,
like crazy.
are you
Yeah.
guys? I recently visited Iceland. You guys aren't closer to the Arctic than Iceland, right? Iceland's a
No,
little.
no, Iceland's right on. They're in the
Yeah,
cold part of the world,
yeah.
but
I
like no,
figured.
but then the top of Scotland isn't like, it's only, I say, like maybe a couple of thousand miles from like where Scotland is, but we're
Oh,
still within that region of where
yeah.
Iceland and Scotland.
Of
So yeah,
of ridiculous colds. Of like, why?
you've got to be built different to. But then it's funny though, because
Yeah.
even like with Puerto Rico and San Fran, like the thing that gets me with those places is like the extreme heat, right? Because then sometimes it's just so
Mm.
warm all the time, you're
Oh,
not actually getting any balance.
especially in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
San Francisco, we do have like hot burst throughout the year
Right.
where most of the time it's a
Mhm.
very like stable.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I don't know Celsius very well, so I'll just use
No, that's
Fahrenheit.
fine. You use Fahrenheit. Oh yeah.
We're it's America. We do everything stupid.
Yeah.
But so out here we're constantly like between anywhere from like 55 to 70 degrees.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I'll check it. Hold on.
I can tell you just now.
Yeah. Check it.
Fahrenheit and Celsius. There you go.
So,
Yeah, so like 10 over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 degrees Celsius. Yeah.
So it's always like that, and then occasionally, you'll have a day where it's like 80 degrees or 90 degrees,
Oh, wow.
and it's
Right.
like, and because we're so used to a normal weather out here, there's no such thing as like air conditioner here. Like
Right.
the
Jesus.
houses aren't built that way. So the
my God.
days that it gets really hot, like it's
You're sweating.
like I'm just like everyone in their house is melting. My cat's
dying,
melting. My boyfriend's melting.
Puddles.
Like I have to use the tablet because like my
Yeah.
Cintiq screen is too hot. I'm like, it's horrible. But it's very lucky that we only have it rarely. However, in Puerto Rico, that's just the norm.
It's another world. Yeah.
It's a tropical island,
Different part of the planet. So
yeah. But yeah, it just made me realize like in Puerto Rico, you only have like, summer is the season. It's like cold summer and then like a
warm
little
summer.
light and then that's it. The colors change a tiny little bit in the season in a way that's really subtle, but it's noticeable. But yeah, it's and then I went to San Francisco that has no seasons. I lived in Florida for a while, a place that also has no seasons.
Yeah.
So the idea of seasons is a very interesting one for me, just because it's like it's a foreign.
I've seen so many people who are that in forms of art as well, because they love like sometimes when it gets to fall and winter because the landscapes change so dramatically. So it's beautiful to paint. But then of course if you live somewhere where the scenery doesn't change too much, you're kind of looking for inspiration. Like it's funny now where like you've had such a massive career, like Magic, ILM, Avengers, you've done all these amazing movies. Like where is your art mind now? Because you've achieved so much. Like what's the next mountain for you to climb? Yeah, that's a big question. I know, but like,
hey, Gordy.
All the best questions here. All the best questions here.
Hey,
I mean, even in your professional work, but like, because I know sometimes when guys get to such a professional level, like they start more inflection on their personal stuff. Because like we're talking about the Hades picture behind you when we started the interview, right? Because you were doing that stuff as like fun, right? You love the game, you love the studio, you want to do something to attribute towards it. So is so that funny. More your mindset now?
All the characters are so hot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Chelsea.
Oh my God, yeah, her art. Wow.
So that's a super interesting question because it's like, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like I've, before we started the podcast, one of the things I was discussing is just these has probably been some of the busiest years of my life, where it's just been like, one major project, and usually I have one major project, and usually I have like one or two side projects, and they've consistent, every time I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be better about the balance of things, and I'm only gonna say yes to really cool things. Well, like the really cool things, and God, I wish I could talk to you about it. Maybe after this in private.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
It's all good.
When it's released, you bet your butt I'm gonna just be like, no, but it's one of those things where it's like certain projects came up where I'm like, oh, I can't say no to this. Oh, I can't say shit.
Of course.
And so, I've kind of found myself in a place where I'm doing a lot of the things that I love, but I'm working to an unsustainable point. So my goal next year is to slow things down a lot. To try to be a little to try to ease, like my excitement even to things that I really love. And because I think, yes, I've devoted like the last 2 years and a half or so to more client projects and to more client work. And it's been really exciting because I've grown a lot in that time. It's just frustrating because I can't show that growth. Like I can't be like, hey, look at this like massive keyframe that I did with like, 50 figures and like a crazy background, because I've been really loving, that like, making scenes and making characters that fit within scenes and working with environments and the lighting and like that to me has been something that I've been falling deeper and deeper in love with in the past, like, 3-4
Yeah.
years. But I can't show that to anybody. So I think like one of the things that I would like for 2022 is a slower year where I do get to focus on more of my personal work, where I do get to go back in oils or even in some of the digital, but I get to explore what's next. Because when it comes to my personal work, I've kind of been in not necessarily a rut, but I've been compilating a lot of my work from the past like decade. It feels weird to say decade, but hey, so yeah. And I noticed that like I was really fascinated with certain subjects for a very long time, in my own personal work. And I kept thinking like, I don't feel the need to explore those subjects anymore. They are kind of like comfort subjects, like,
Right.
draped figures. I think I will always have a fascination for draped figures. But like, a solitary figure with a black background and, something, melancholic about it. I still love the feeling about it, but I want to explore past those boundaries. Like I want to be like, okay, what if it is in a solitary figure? Where it's like 20 different figures. They're all very depressed, of course.
Yeah.
They're all very bummed out, clear, but
Yeah.
for no reason whatsoever. Someone stubbed their
Yeah.
toe, other has a tummy ache. Like whatever reason you want to give them.
Yeah.
But I want to like explore and I want to make bigger scenes. I want to, make like paintings that like really push me in the way that my client work has pushed me these past couple of years. So I think like if I were to be like, hey, 2022, here's my wish, it would be less work for more money. Ha ha.
The dream.
Yeah, the dream. For the cool projects to just wait for a year so that I can take a year to be a little slower, to travel Japan and to focus on my work a little bit more. And another thing I've been doing, I want to study again. Like, so I'm currently taking a class. It's about to end, but I'm currently taking a class with Kevin Chen on analytical figure drawing, because I learned the a very atelier method of anatomy where it's like very observational, very like observe what you're seeing and then put it down on paper. And my understanding of anatomy before then was kind of a constructive one, but it was a very basic mannequin frame type of situation. Kevin is an incredible teacher, and he has been teaching just how like all the muscles work together, how they look, and it almost feels like a medical course without having to remember all the names of things.
Right.
Then I would fail immediately. But it's funny because like even by the first class, like he just said a couple things where it's like, oh, I know these landmarks and I've known them for a long time, but now I understand them. Now I know why they're there. And my sketching just became totally different. And so I'm kind of addicted to that. I want to like learn more for a while, go into a period of like, okay, you work for so long. And while you're working, there's not a lot of room to learn, because you have to provide a service. So I'd like to take just even a brief moment to take a couple workshops from artists I admire, or, even if it's just to listen in and just to learn or to join them and teach or whatever it may be, So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I found the opposite where I had so much time before I got my actual full-time gig. And now that I'm working full-time, I want to do stuff like learn Blender or, learn new techniques in 3D. But, I'm 40 odd hours a week in my job. So like, when I finish, I'm kind of like, I don't want to do any more 3D because I spent so many years studying to get here. I kind of enjoy the fact that like I get to just chill at night and sit downstairs and watch TV. You know what I mean? So
I think there's a time for everything. I posted not too long ago some of my what I call a comfort sketch, and the comfort sketch is
Yeah.
literally like things that I just don't even think about. I'm just like face,
Yeah.
person, oh that's kind of fun, like it's mindless. I'm not,
Yeah.
because you put so much thought into your art all the time, you need a place to just like bleh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And someone commented like, oh my god, like it's crazy that you have the time to do these kind of sketches, because like art for so long has been work for me that like i
Right.
i don't even want to do that. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, I told them that like, oh, this is a very rare occurrence for me, but I generally do believe that there's a time and place, and our creativity kind of ebbs and flows.
Hmm.
And if you're working full time as an artist, like it's so unreasonable to ask of yourself to also do sketches on the side and also do all these things.
Yeah.
I think it's important to do personal work though, because that does feed your soul,
Yeah.
and that does like help you combat the client work where it's you in service of other people's
Yes.
vision, and you do
Yeah.
need to nurture your vision. But if
Hmm.
you're like been working for so long and you're exhausted, your vision can calm down for a second. Like you can like
Yeah.
take a break. And then as things slow down, like you'll find yourself wanting to do the extra stuff on the side. And
Of course.
um especially, I think this is especially true for people who've been working in the industry for a while. It may not
Yeah.
be so for people who've just joined in,
Hmm.
who are just like so excited, full of energy, I'm gonna do everything,
Yeah.
which is totally fine. That's a stage
Yeah.
in life. But
Hmm.
after you're in it for a couple of years, you're just like, man, I'm tired. I gave all my energy to this, and sometimes
Yeah.
you need a break. And creativity needs that. It needs
Yeah.
rest.
100%. We talked about that with one of the guests not too long ago, where like for the longest time, I just couldn't find the fun in art anymore. Because when I initially
Mm-hmm.
started, I was so
Mm-hmm.
hyped and so like, let's go, let's leave this career that I hate, that's boring, let's go chase my dream, let's go do this shit. And for years and years, I grinded and traveled and met people and done all these events. And eventually, it just got to a point I hated sitting at my desk. But then, as soon as I got my job and I had money to eat, to support myself, to pay my
Mm-hmm.
bills,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like the pressure came off, and I just totally rediscovered that I
Mm-hmm.
loved art.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing that happens, but yeah, you've got to almost rediscover it constantly.
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah,
marriage or some shit like that, you know?
you go off and cheat for a couple of months and come back.
But it's like it's a
Appreciate your partner
beautiful,
more.
it's a beautiful functional one where even at
Yeah,
its best you still are like, ugh, I need a break,
yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, yeah.
It's funny.
No, no.
uh, but no,
Mm,
it's true. We just go
mm,
through phases, like
mhm.
even I don't know if it was like the exhaustion of like so many years just going really, really hard, but like,
Yeah,
this I'm just exiting a, artist block where I'm just like, ugh, I'm just very tired. And
yeah,
like, I have all these paintings that I do, and I'm going to do them to the best of my ability. And whenever I sit down to paint,
yeah.
like, I'm always in it. Like it's
Mhm.
like a button that clicks where I'm like, oh, safe place, or oh, temple, or like this is a great place to be. But
Yeah.
before I get to sit down and paint, like it's the anticipation that I'm like, ugh, I don't want to work. I just want to like lay
Oh,
here
yeah.
and read a book, and just, you get very tired. But I'm now getting my energy back. And I think
Mhm,
it's mostly like different things will do it. Sometimes it's a
mhm,
project you're really excited about.
mm.
Sometimes it's you learning something new and you want to apply it right away.
Yeah.
Like it could be so many different things that'll spark it. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
time off, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things where it's like the damaging thing that we do to ourselves though is that we have this vision of what the perfect working professional is.
Right.
And it's so often such a machine, such a like it's more of machine than human. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we want to be the artist that works all the time, has to
Mhm.
freelance, is also working on personal stuff, like, is posting constantly, is
Yeah.
learning constantly. And
Mhm.
somewhere in between there, you have to make time for family, for friends, for other
Yep.
things. So it's like, it's so crazy,
For
our
kids eventually, if you want
expectations.
kids as well, like have families and Jesus Christ, like that's even
Yeah.
that's like a
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that it's one of these things where I've seen people do it, but then sometimes it's at the sacrifice of their personal life, where
Oh.
they're in super big studios and they've had kids and families, but then they spend so much time at their work, like their kids never see them, and so it's like
Mm-mm.
it's from every industry I've came from before.
Mhm.
This industry stands alone, where because people are so passionate about their work and love what they do, studios will constantly take advantage of that to
Oh,
the
yeah.
point where you're burnt out constantly and then thrown out when you're done. I remember Alan McKay talked about when he was like 19 and working in like on these films in Vancouver, like he was, running about working, 80, 90 hours a week, and he was on every project and trying to help people with stuff with VFX. And one of the guys sat him down and he was like, this doesn't matter. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, they're going to use you because you can do all this stuff for them. And they'll just
Mhm.
constantly use you because you're willing to work 90 hours a
Mhm.
week, but they're not
Mhm.
here 90 hours a week. And then when you're burnt out and tired, they'll just throw you to the side and you'll be left, destroyed basically.
Yep.
And it's so hard to find that balance because so many kids,
Mhm.
like I say, as we talked about the interview, want to come into the industry and just do anything to get the work, including working
Mhm.
crazy contracts. So
Mhm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
yeah,
It,
it's bad.
it's a it's a tricky situation because, like, you want to, when you're starting out, you really do want to just put your foot in the door, and like,
Yeah,
that will often mean, yes, I'll do anything, yes, I'll just do it, whatever it is you need.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a easy way for people to take advantage.
Hmm.
And I think, you know, there's so many resources now to
Hmm.
how, good working relationships should be.
Yeah,
And if you have any questions, you could just ask, go
yeah.
on, like, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I
Hmm.
find not very good for conversations because you can never tell who responds to you. The
Yeah.
layout's very poor.
Hmm.
But you could just ask, or
Yeah.
even hear interviews to what it's like, or um or even ask your peers, people who are
Hmm.
also entering the industry, hey,
Yeah.
what's this like for you?
Hmm.
Is this good, is this healthy?
Hmm.
And because, yeah, companies, people
Hmm.
themselves, individuals and art teams and stuff, like, they'll
Hmm.
always try their best for their workers, right?
Hmm.
But corporations, companies, their whole their whole purpose is to make profit at all cost.
Yeah.
And wherever they can cut to make that profit, they will. So
Yeah.
one of the best advice that I got, starting out
Hmm.
is, like, I was starting out and I was going really hard. I was working overtime, trying
Hmm.
to do my very best. And
Yeah.
this my lead at a time, Carolina Tello, who's
Hmm.
fantastic,
Hmm.
she sat me down one day. She's like, hey, Karla, so
Hmm.
I want to say, first and foremost, you're doing great. You're doing
Hmm.
amazing,
Hmm.
but you're giving it 100%. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, yay. And she's like, no, 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 no. I need
Hmm.
you to give
Hmm.
me 60%.
Hmm.
Maybe, yeah, so 60 sounds good. 60,
Hmm.
55. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what? And she's
Why?
like, yeah. And she's just like, because if you're always at 100%, people are going
Hmm.
to expect you to do 100%. And that's
Constantly.
unsustainable.
Yeah.
And the day that you won't be at 100%, that's the way that where people will be like, she's not giving it her all. They won't appreciate it.
Yeah.
So give it your 60%
Hmm.
and, give good work,
Hmm.
but save your 100% for very, very specific moments in your career. And it was some of
Yeah.
the best advice I had.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just, we could go on forever on, like, the
Yeah.
the way corporations can
Yeah.
treat
I mean,
artists.
like the whole. I mean, especially, I think it's different within like films, right? Because films are like a separate entity for games. Games are a separate entity for TV. Like. But then I think there's a whole revelation within the whole industry because you think about the film industry. It's only been up like 100 years. The game industry has only been really going for what, maybe 40, 50 years.
Yeah,
So like the changes we're seeing now, especially with the Me Too movement and like the studios and all that stuff that's happening, that's just an element of like chucking all the 90s mentality out the window and
yeah,
trying to like move it forward into like the 21st century.
yeah.
And some of the stories are crazy, like, but then
Yeah.
it needs to be done because we can't sustainably go on that way forever. Where people, I mean, like
Yeah.
there was a story years and years ago. My creative director Matt, when he was, I mean, he left Lucas at the time to go work in Stormfront, I think, and even they had a couple of interviews, and one of them was at EA, and he was like walking about the floor at one point. They were like, "Oh, this is where your desk would be. These are your colleagues," and some dudes had like sleeping bags on the floor because they were like staying at the studio
No,
overnight, and he
no.
was like, "Okay, that's cool. Well, thanks for showing me about. I'm going to leave now."
Bye. Good, as he should. No, it's
Yeah.
it's horrifying. We're and yeah, no. And then you think
Mhm.
about like the amount of money like that
Mhm.
these companies make out of your, you
Yeah.
know, artistic labor, and how
Yeah.
it's so often like compensated like nothing. So it's
Yeah.
like no. Certain practices need to change right now. But
Yeah.
even like even on a historical level, right? Where let's take
Mhm.
it back to like, you know, families and being with
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
Um one of my favorite stories is of this artist called Walter Everest, who happens to be one of my favorite artists. When I saw his work for the first time, you know, it's like, oh my God, this is like, you know,
Mhm.
a golden age illustrator type of dude.
Yeah.
And there's not that much artwork of his
Mhm.
because you know, in the middle of his career, close to the height
Mhm.
of his career, he went on a rage and burned
Mm.
all of his artwork.
Wow.
And he led a very lonely and sad and miserable life because
Right.
he was so obsessed with his work. He alienated everybody in his life. He
Right.
not only alienated his like wife, his kids, they were
Mhm.
just like, you know what,
Mhm.
we're done with you. See ya.
Yeah.
And he also like was a nightmare to work with because he was so obsessed. He couldn't let it go that like
Mhm.
his editors would be like,
Mhm.
okay, it's like
Mhm.
4 months. Where's the work? And he's like, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. But there's so many stories of that. You know, even when you look at like history and like artists like
Mm.
who, you know, do reach great heights, but it comes at a cost.
Yep.
And like for example, oh god, I'm trying to remember which one specifically what. Like Mead Schaefer. I
Mhm.
think it was Mead Schaefer. Was he the
Mhm.
one? God, I'm trying to remember. It was one of them. I'm pretty sure it was Mead Schaefer.
Mhm.
He did a. Now I'm like, it should Mead Schaefer. Here, you might need to edit this because I'm like, hold on,
You
hold on.
can. You can.
Mead
We're live. We're all good. You
Schaefer.
look up chef. You need to look up. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Mead Schaefer, 50 States paintings. Was that this one? Was he the one that did that? La, 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 la. Yes, he did. Oh,
Mhm.
nailed it.
Yes.
So Mead Schaefer, a prolific illustrator in the Golden Age. His work is
Right.
incredible. He decides, I'm going to do my magnus opus, and I'm going to travel to all 50 states, and I'm going to do illustrations of all 50 states. And
Oh
he
wow.
did it, if I'm not mistaken, in a span of about 2 years. But he
Oh,
wrecked
nice.
himself so much that he
Of
couldn't
course.
be an illustrator anymore. He had
Wow.
like incredible pains in his body, and so he had to retire from the thing that he loved. And
Jesus.
he basically just like, you know, went off. I think it
Mhm.
was he ended up in New Jersey, and all he
Mhm.
did was just like the occasional like painting that he did. Um, and fun fact, he also died of a heart attack at the Society of Illustrators.
Jesus Christ.
So when you go to New York and you visit the Society of Illustrators, which I hear was a den of decadence, because
Jesus Christ.
those artists were like the debaucherous type. They used to take their mistresses out there, and so
Oh my
you go
God.
to these halls and you're like, these paintings are beautiful, and then you listen to all these stories, and you're like, man, artists are just
You're
gnarly.
like, wow, a BDSM community meets illustrators. This is interesting.
Okay,
Cool.
cool. Back in like when the
Yeah.
1980s
Yeah.
around there. Oh, good. All
I mean, it's
right.
crazy, like, even to think, like, just so many people that are just, like,
Raunchy,
you know,
horrible people.
oh, God.
Like we think
Yeah.
of them as such so refined. Like for example, Anders Zorn.
Oh,
His
yeah.
wife is really funny because Anders Zorn did all these like beautiful, elegant like portraitures but in
Mm-hmm.
his free time. And by the way, all these artists and
Mm-hmm.
Sorn, Sargent, all of them were always wanting to have like their own time to do their own personal work. That was
Gosh.
their thing. Like Sargent
Mm-hmm.
hated the society portraits he had to do nonstop. Like he just wanted to do his own thing, and so was Sorn. Sorn was very similar, but he would draw these like be really elegant, beautiful women. They were all naked though, and at the time that was like, and like, and so his wife used to be like, "Oh, my husband, he's like so elegant, but he's also like." He's got like the taste of a farmer. So she used to be like, he's so raunchy. He's so raunchy.
But then it's funny though, because did you actually? I don't know if you contributed or not, but did you contribute to hardcover?
Hardcover. Oh no, I didn't get to. Poor Spiridon is always trying to be like, "Hey Karla, join my book," and I'm like, "I can't. I got like 50 things going on, Spiridon. I love you, but please."
Yeah, because there was a whole thing ages ago with Instagram and artists I knew at the time who were doing raunchy stuff, but then it was almost like not sexual, but like it was a way they wanted to express their artwork in that sense and draw figures like that. And hardcover obviously came about from that because people obviously on Instagram were getting blocked or taken off the system. And Spiridon saw a gap where he was like, well, why don't we make a book and collect that stuff? Because like, look, consenting adults across the world, BDSM, polyamory, gay, bi, straight, whatever you guys want to do, float your own boat. Like, we're all here for free love. And I think it's a great way that people can express that stuff. And I think more projects like that probably should exist because there is a part of your artistry where you think to an extent about the darker side of human existence, sexuality, and that's the stuff you try to pour into your work and into your paintings. And it's weird. I think we've almost lost that because there's so much, Photoshop, Adobe, Substance, like there's so many tools and digital aspects. People want to get back to the human experience that is art, and it's hard to, I think, clear the digital barricade and push through with your sketchbooks to stuff that you still find is, for people that was fun, that was exploring, that was the dangerous side of art, and we kind of lose it now because you're drawing superheroes, right?
Isn't it silly though that like something as natural as sex is considered the dangerous aspect of art as opposed to like actual violent imagery? That is like, like we're so comfortable with like extraordinarily gory and awful violence, but like, oh my god,
somebody's having sex.
Someone's having sex.
Call the newspapers.
It's so weird. It's so weird. I've always been like, what the hell is society? Specifically in America. It's like you will have the most insane like violence ever, but Lord forbid there's like a male genitalia or any kind of genitalia on a screen. Goodness no.
I remember watching the documentaries by Louis Theroux where he talked about how, especially between porn and brothels, like with America in general, it's such a sell sex country that they still are so taboo about the whole subject, even though half of their industries are built on it. Like, it's like mind blowing.
Yeah, that's it. The majority of the industries are open the Beltway.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he talks about like the world's oldest profession because he talks about how back in the West, the whorehouses were places where people would raise money to help build the town. Like it was, so it's a thing where that whole 300-400 years is just, it feels like you've never really came forward any more steps.
It's really interesting because it is the world's oldest profession, but it was also like, for women at those times.
It was empowering.
Yeah, it was their job, and it was like one of their best methods for them to gain their own agency. And it wasn't seen as like, oh, I'm like, it's like I'm degrading myself. No, it was like, oh, I'm providing for myself. I don't have to have a husband. I don't have to do anything. I'm my own free woman. And there's something really crazy about that when you're just like, oh, especially when you find out you're right. Like certain American towns were founded from brothels.
And built. Yeah. It's crazy. And then even watching the documentary the other day about just how women in general have came forward so far in like industry, especially within artistic industries, because it used to be that you needed a husband or a partner because you couldn't really financially hold yourself up as much. But now, like, women specifically have so much money behind them within industry and structure
Mhm.
that it's like a lot of people like don't want to have kids, they don't want to get married, they just want to have a career. So, and then women are looked down on that, right? Like, oh, you don't want to
Yeah.
have kids, like how terrible, and you're so career focused, why can't you have a family, or stop, and slow down. But the world has changed so rapidly, so quickly, right? It's like, yeah, it's a great time, but it's like, because it's such a great time of change, there's so much turmoil, right? There's so much up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sorry, I was also looking, I'm like, oh, I need to find out, because it's a great story.
Mm.
So first and foremost, yeah, it's if you look at it in a historic context and as an artist, it's a great
Yeah.
time for me. It's for me,
Yes.
and for most, other female,
Yeah.
or or queer, or any kind of gender orientation artist, because it is a more, there's a long way to go. Clearly,
Yes.
as we hear some of the stories that have uncovered, but in a historic sense, like the fact that I am able to do art under my name, and it is
Yeah.
seen as oh, great, that's a wonderful thing, as opposed to
Right.
historically, like you have, like, even like what the Renaissance Artemisia, she went through horrible things. There were so many artists throughout history where, like, they were women, but they had to publish their art under their husbands or men in their lives.
There was a movie recently about that with one of the women who drew the big eyes paintings, and her husband took all the credit.
To go back to the golden age of illustrators too, there was even a fantastic group of artists. They all studied under not why am I saying Phil Hale?
Yeah.
Phil Hale is a fantastic. It is not a day. It is not a day for good names for me. Golden Age illustrator.
You don't have to be factually accurate. It's all good.
Yeah, but this is a big one. Like, Golden Age illustrators was just the father, Howard Pyle. Jesus, Phil. Why am I thinking Phil?
Yeah.
But yeah, so they all studied under Howard Pyle, and it's like it was a community of women, and they formed a little group that they used to call the Red Rose Girls, and it was it was basically Elizabeth Shipping Green, Violet Oakley. There's another one. Jessie, I think her name was Jessie Wilcox. But anyway, and there's like one more there whose name I don't remember. But it was like a group of 4 women. They were all fantastic painters, muralists. They did all the things. And what they did is that they made a house, and they all like made an oath to each other to never marry. Because if they marry, then they couldn't be painters anymore. They had to go help out the husband. They had to assume certain responsibilities. And they lived together for quite a long time, and they thrived in that scene. And it was some of the work that they did was just fantastic. And it ended when one of the women did indeed marry, and like it was a very tumultuous time for them, because they thought, oh, how could she marry? How could she? And it broke down that route. And some of them didn't even talk to each other for a long time because of that. Wow. So that's how much of a big deal it was. That's how difficult it was. Like, nowadays, if like a lady was like, fuck you, I'm going to continue with it. What's wrong with you? But yeah, no, it's historically, it's a good time. It's just a good time to be an artist in general. Like, the ability to have your work be seen, and by so many people all over the world, and the ability to contact and see the work of so many people in the world. That is peculiar, and that is just a fantastic thing. And seeing the ebbs and flows, and how things develop, and the new work that comes out, and the new techniques that come out, and the wonderful things that people do. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be an artist.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you want to, because everybody has a phone, right? You can easily open either a Facebook or an Instagram account, DeviantArt, ArtStation. Yeah. These are all free sites. And if your work is good enough, people always gave me this question, even people now, students I have, start this whole thing of how do I get people to see my work? What's the best way to get exposure? And I'm like, if your work is good enough, people will find you every time. You don't have to worry about paying for exposure or paying Instagram for advertised revenue. Like, if you make awesome shit, people will want you to make awesome shit for them. It's always been the case. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's how it goes. It's really frustrating, right? Because you wanna tell people like, hey, like it is easy, but it's not. Like you wanna tell people
Yeah.
that, you know, hey, if you have this one mega hit in the internet,
Yeah.
you'll get it. But
Yeah.
in reality, it all just comes down to the work that you have, especially for if you want to join an industry,
Yeah.
right? Like especially like the entertainment industry. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. And here's the thing too, it doesn't matter how many followers you have for this
Hmm.
industry. What matters is that the right people see your
Hmm.
work, if your work is
Yes.
ready. Like
Yeah.
we had a discussion not too long ago, me and a couple friends, because on Twitter there was this whole big artist, small artist thing, which is kind of very silly to me because
Oh my god.
it's
That's the reason I contacted you. It was the whole reason I messaged you a year ago about that argument you had with that dude. Oh my god. Yeah.
I don't
Fucking
even remember.
ridiculous.
I always have arguments with people. I need to. I've calmed down a lot in that. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
because it's just not worth it. It's too much brain
Nah, it's not.
power. It's
You're screaming into an
exhausting.
empty void. I mean, like,
Oh, it's too
yeah,
much. It's too much.
yeah, yeah.
But like recently there was a really silly argument where it's like, oh, big artists, this, and number one, like most artists that like it tries to put like followers and number of followers as some kind of class system, which is really silly because
Okay.
that's not how it goes. Like at the end of the day, like
Yeah,
most of us in this industry are like middle class, lower middle
yeah.
class.
Most of us, yeah,
Sometimes we slide onto poverty because this is a very feast and famine type of
yes,
space.
yeah.
Sometimes you're doing really wonderfully. If you're very, very, very lucky, you'll make it to upper middle class. And
Of
like
course.
maybe 1%, 2% of people in this industry are a
Yeah.
little bit higher, but I can't even think of them. I am like, who? Like, and
Yeah.
not through working with clients. That only
Hmm.
happens with people who end up doing television shows or
Right.
get like, crazy book deals or, so many other things.
Yeah.
But it's like a very like it's a very superficial argument, the idea of like equating followers to success, because that's not how it goes, specifically
Exactly.
for artists in our industry. And so
Hmm.
I was like, man, I would much rather, if your interest is to be an artist in this industry,
Yeah.
a small curated following
Hmm.
of like people that have hiring power, people who
Yep.
are in the industry, is
Hmm.
far, far better than a
Hmm.
massive following of people who just like your work, that might
Right.
not be able to hire you or that don't even
Mm.
have a buying power. Like
Yep.
if you want to do commissions for a living, right? Like
Hmm.
a small group of people that are fans of your work that do have buying power is much
Right.
better than a massive group of people that like don't. There's
Hmm.
only few instances that I can think of where like having a large following is helpful. For example, if you're
Right.
doing like a uh teaching gig or something like that, where you do
Right.
want a lot of people to see it, and where people
Yeah.
who might not have the ability but they want the ability, you'll see it, that's helpful.
Hmm.
Or if you're a
Yeah.
fine artist or anything that requires hype, you know that where there's like a collector base, sometimes they will look at, oh, how many
Hmm.
people see it, because you want it to be like, you want to buy something that's famous, that from someone that's perceived as famous. Or if you just want
Right.
to be like a a personality, right, where it's more
Right.
of like an influencer than an artist, then that is helpful, because that
Yeah.
the follower metric is utilized, but not
Yep.
to be like an artist in the industry painting. Nobody cares. Nobody's like, oh wow, did you see our new hire, they have like 100,000 followers, like nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, like it'll blow like so many people's mind to know how many incredible artists are in this industry who have zero social media presence. They're just like, no, they refuse. But people know their work. The right people saw their brilliant work, and they don't need to be on it. I
Yeah. I
want,
mean, like it's. Yeah. I mean, it's. There's a lot to unpack there, obviously, what you're talking
yeah.
about. But then it's a thing where one of the things I'd done early in my career back in 2018. I mean, you'll probably not remember this, right? But like,
Mhm.
I walked up to you when you were drunk with Cynthia at THU in 2018, And I was like, Karla, sign my sketchbook, please. And she was like, cool. And you were like, oh, I'd probably draw something, but I'm drunk. So, like, yeah, but something might draw. But then, like, I had the balls to walk up to you and be like,
You're a
hey,
sweetie.
Karla.
Hell yeah.
But then, but it was the same with Raf Gazette. Like, the reason I got work with Raf and now is
Yeah.
my friend is
Yeah.
because I walked up to him at THU and I was like, oh, I really love your work. Do
Yeah.
you want to get a beer? And he was like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? There's this whole thing where people think going up to meeting people like you is, you know, it's something like you're going to turn around and be like, fuck off. Like, you know, you're small time, you know. Yeah, exactly. You're the total opposite. You're so lovely.
Thank you.
Because I was nobody, right? But then, like, I came along and you were like, hey, what's happening? And who are you? And I was like, oh, Karla, I love your work. Please sign my book.
Especially if I'm drunk, because I get really like,
Yay!
no.
Yeah.
No, you're so correct. Like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like meeting people, like going to events like that, and like
Yep.
politely reaching out to the people that you're like, I really love your work.
Mhm.
Can you help me, or can
Mhm.
you like give me some thoughts, or can you just sign this? Like,
She's done it with Ian, and Ian was a huge figure as well.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the thing is that like we've all been there. You know, we all
Yeah.
started from somewhere, so we know and understand deeply the pain of what it's like to not know where you're headed, to not
Yeah.
know what's missing. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, hey, give you directions, right? Like exactly in the way as like it's as simple as like, hey, I'm trying to get to this spot. Can you tell me how do I get there? And like it's like the art equivalent of you going, oh, okay, we'll take a left here and then find
Yeah.
this. Like that's it. We're just talking about terrain here.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't come with a hey, fuck off, you know, like
Mhm.
and unless you meet the rare ass artist, which by the way they don't last very long in the industry. They're very, very rare.
Yeah.
Just because people like to work with nice people, and it's such
Yeah.
a cutthroat. Well, it's not cutthroat, but it's so in demand that like people will be like, hey, you're very talented, you're very wonderful at what you
Yeah.
do, but you yourself are not wonderful to work with. So
Yeah.
maybe on special occasions, but hey,
Yeah.
look at these other people, they're new, they might
Yeah.
not be as good, but they're wonderful
Mhm.
to work with, and people always opt for that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
most folks are very giving.
Yeah. I mean, like the industry is so small in a sense. Know that there's so few people, but because of the communication routes, things
Mhm.
travel quickly. Like if you are a bad person to work with or a bad person in general, then those people are zeroed out quite quickly, and
Yeah.
word will spread super fast about, you know, things that, I mean, like even the thing I always tell people is like if you have an interview at a studio and you're walking physically through the door, they already know you're a good artist, right? What they're interviewing
Mhm.
is this person a cycle?
Yes.
Can we have them in our studio? This is what
Yeah.
they're really looking. Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
so many of those meetings are lunch meetings, right? You go to lunch with people and sit in a social queue and like, oh, have a conversation about the day or what you've been up to. And if
Mhm.
you can hold a normal physical conversation with another human being, that goes so far in
Yeah.
this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really all about being a sweetheart, which is why I'm always like telling people like don't be a jerk. Just be a good person.
yeah.
Even online, because like I
Mhm,
worry very much and I believe like for example a place like Twitter in
mhm,
particular, but most
mhm.
other places, like how they
Yeah.
get engagement is through anger, right? Like that's the thing that gets the most clicks, that's the thing that gets the most hype. And so like it's always gives you this perception of, oh, in order to be popular and in order to
Yeah.
be desired, I need to also have a hot take, right? But what people don't
Yeah.
understand is like that doesn't work when you want to enter a specific industry, especially one as small as ours. I've seen so many it breaks my heart because I've seen a lot of people who in their profile they're like, I want to work in illustration, I want to work in animation, I want to work in concept art, and
Mhm,
they're treating people like shit for no reason whatsoever, you know, like if
mhm.
there was a solid reason, like, oh, this person was like known harasser, you know, then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's, but some people are just like, oh, I disagree with you on this, I'm gonna treat you like
Mhm.
ass, you know.
Yeah.
Or simple things like, I like pasta, well, I'm like such a, you know, how dare you, the pasta industry is bullshit,
You
you know, like
monster.
you monster. And they treat people like shit, and it's one of
Mm,
those things where it's like like, oh, I really want to tell so many people, because like we have conversations about this often, where it's like
Yeah.
sometimes it'll be the topic of the day and it gets
Mhm.
very, very heated and people get very
Mhm.
heated at each other. And while that
Mhm.
happens, you'll have a bunch of professionals that are getting like treated like shit online, and it's just like, oh, well, I'm just gonna block it. But that's how you cut off your venue to enter this. And it's things that, like, the thing that's most frustrating is if you were to see a person face to face, you would never have a
Mhm.
conversation like that.
Exactly.
Like, you
Exactly.
could
Yeah.
disagree all day, and that is
Mhm.
fine because we're humans. We're meant to disagree. But if I were to be like, hey, listen, Gordy, I don't like, I like pasta and I know that you
Mhm.
dislike it, but let's have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like it could be as simple as
Yeah.
that. And you'll find
Mhm.
really interesting things about
Mhm.
why, you'll find more common ground than you realize. But online,
Mhm.
it's so easy, especially, place that rewards anger like Twitter.
Yeah.
So be kind to people, even online, like, because
Yeah.
that shit can haunt you, and that shit can,
I
like,
mean, like the two examples I can think of off the top of my head, and one is like, with me being vegetarian, I've had
yeah,
so many conversations with people who are like, "Oh, that's really cool. That's really brave of you to do that. That's
yeah,
great that you're making a choice to help the earth." And then you'll meet the other people who are like, "Oh, you're a fucking idiot, bacon," and you're like,
you're like,
"Ah." But then exactly the same thing where, like, I remember when Last of Us came out, I think it was last year, Last of Us 2,
yeah,
and Frank Sung put up his 3D sculpt of Abby, who, of course, in the game is quite,
yeah.
I'm not going to say she's not feminine, but like she has, like,
She's
yeah, more
fit.
muscular tones.
She's
Exactly.
wonderful. She's a
Totally. I follow people on that, like that on Instagram, who have like
yeah,
incredible bodies, and they,
yeah.
but then there was a whole section in his ArtStation comments where people were like shouting abuse, fighting with each other. I was like,
Uh,
Jesus Christ, like,
yeah,
oh my god, just,
yeah.
yeah, it was crazy,
The voice
absolutely
actress,
crazy.
the voice actors got death threats, and you're just like, are you fucking kidding me, man? Like, calm
Wow.
down.
My
and and
god.
and you'd have artists, young or not so young, but like
Hmm.
people who want to join the industry, like commenting on the art and just shitting on it, and you're just like,
Why?
why,
Why?
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 I mean,
Just be nice.
just
It costs you nothing to be nice to people. It costs you
like,
absolutely fuck all.
yeah.
Mm.
And it's like, not everything has to be so catastrophic that you
Has to be an argument.
have to
Yeah.
wage battle. I will
Yeah.
wage battle for not strong arms.
Karla, I'm not joking here. I have seen people fight between watercolors versus acrylics. I joke you not. I have seen people go fucking ham that, like, you use water. I didn't use water, but what's that all about? Like,
Oh my
Jesus Christ,
god.
shut up.
Oh my god. Yeah, no. I'm pretty
Yeah.
fucking done with social media, to be honest.
I think we all are. Jesus.
Yeah, we all are, because it's like,
Yeah.
you want it to
We
be
grew up with Facebook. Like, Facebook's
yeah.
been, I've been there since its inception, and yeah, I think it's done more harm than good, personally, for a lot of things.
Yeah, honestly, especially with like a lot of the Facebook whistleblowers that come out,
Oh God,
and
yeah,
they're just like,
yeah,
yeah, no, we do reward, anger and
yeah,
hate and division, and
yeah.
and you're just like,
Especially, yeah, I
oh,
mean, the last couple of years, especially because, like, you being in America,
oh,
Trump, right?
fuck.
Like, yeah, yeah. I mean, let's not even go there. But, like, Jesus Christ, that was a whole thing for
Oh,
4
that was
years.
a
But
thing.
yeah,
I mean, we're still feeling the repercussions of all that, but
yeah. I mean, I done the Black Lives Matter panel in
yeah.
the heat of that, and I had guys on like Philip Booty Jr. and
Oh,
Kevin Smith and a couple other
beautiful
guys, and
people. I love.
beautiful people. And we
Yeah,
done a whole, I didn't even host it. I got one of my black friends to host the panel because
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
this isn't even, my voice doesn't need to be heard here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They can take over. And it was such, I mean, and even Artel, Artel, who owns and is the first owner of a black anime studio in
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo, he talked about like their reception of how the Japanese have been talking, because he was getting interviewed at the time by loads of stations about the Black Lives Matter movement, and that whole episode, even when I made that, there was a whole backlash when I posted it some places, and people were like, all lives matter, and you're like, oh my god, like,
No,
oh Jesus Christ, like, fuck, and
no.
you cannot win, and yeah, like, because I just wanted to give people a platform, and that's all I wanted to do was help, just something to just help.
Yeah.
But then I lost like a couple hundred subscribers, but at the time I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, if you don't want to be here, you're better off without you. Go away. So
There's
yeah,
there are. Okay, so we talked about, trivial things that people fight against.
Mm-hmm.
Watercolor, versus like
Acrylics.
acrylics.
Yeah.
But the one thing that isn't trivial is like basic human rights.
Mm.
Like someone like all when the marches were going and like it
Mm-hmm.
was at the height, it was like there was a
Mm-hmm.
debate of it. And even I was like, I don't even get why there has to be a debate on whether
Yep.
someone has the right to live just a regular life without having
Just to live.
to
Just to
fear
live.
just
Yeah.
randomly getting murdered because of the color and the melanin on your skin.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where it's like that's the one place where it's like, no, we do need to, like, that does need to be fought strongly against, because it's one of
Yep.
those things where it's like, again, basic human rights. You cannot mess with
Yes.
that. Like the
Yep.
ability for someone to just like, you can't just be like, oh, well, I think this group of people should like not live, and that's not
Yeah.
acceptable. That is just
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
acceptable. So I'm glad
Yeah.
and that you had that conversation, especially with someone as wonderful and beautiful as Phil and the other
Oh
fellas.
yeah.
They're
Phil's a dude. He's a
yeah,
dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's I adore that man. We we go back.
Yeah.
But no, it's so, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day,
Mm-hmm.
all it's about is just be a good human being, be a
Yep.
good ethical human being. That's it.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
you know, res- respects people's human
Mhm.
rights. And then also, if someone likes watercolor, but you're all team acrylic, let them like watercolor. It's okay. It's okay.
Hashtag Team Watercolor. Oh my god.
See, I'm in the middle. I'm oils. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I'm just hanging
yeah.
out. We just want to have a
You
good
monster,
time.
Carla. You fucking monster. How dare you?
How dare you? It is so
Yeah.
slippy. Ew. It's
Yeah.
true. Like, whenever I finish painting oils, I have to like take a shower because like your skin gets
Oh,
really oily.
you're
And
like
it's,
covered.
yeah,
Yeah,
covered.
Jesus
And I'm
Christ.
always covered in like oils. Like, there's one painting session I did live where I had like
Mhm.
oils in my ear.
Oh god.
And I don't even
Oh,
know how I
yeah.
got there.
Yeah. But put the paintbrush to hold it at one point. And you're like, oh, that
Yeah,
looks good.
I'm
Oh,
just like,
shit.
but yeah, no. So, but
Oh,
it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm tired of social media. I'm trying to find a good place to be. I think I might end up doing a blog, because so I
I
did.
was I was just about to say that. That's exactly
Yeah,
what I've been doing.
yeah,
I've literally just joined a publication in Scotland that does games news and works for the Games Network in Scotland
yeah.
to be a technical writer. So I'm going to
Oh,
be doing
congrats.
articles on thanks, doing technical artists and some talks about like entering the industry.
Yeah,
But like yeah, like I feel that's one of the last bastions is just type, right?
yeah,
That we've got left where we
yeah,
can express and people can join in, and there's less of a battle because you're putting out your opinion. People can read it or not read it, but there's no comment
yeah,
section. There's no So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I really want to do that because, like, I so I went through a period of loss,
Mm.
uh because like the internet and social media just got to a point where it was just so intense. And it was one of those things where it's like, I don't want to touch too much on the subject because I know it's like a heated subject and all that, but like when
Yeah.
NFTs came out, like I was just
Mm-hmm.
asking a question, and there was some really good debate to be had, but
Mm-hmm.
I got a segment of people that were like, oh no, you shouldn't even have this debate, like,
Mm.
you're and it was followed with like, threats of violence. I had someone post that like, oh, you should get beat up by your like peers. I had like people say like, oh, you're a sexual harasser because a known sexual harasser engaged in this. I had people be like, you've always been a sellout. Like,
Oh
and
my
and
god.
I haven't even like done anything in this space. I was just like, this is an interesting technology. Let's discuss
Yep.
it because we're gonna need to
Yep.
discuss it as a community.
Yeah.
And it was such a like, and it wasn't just me, it was literally everybody I knew that either had, was asking questions, was trying to have a conversation about it, or was like
Right.
joining the space and had their reasons. And it just felt like it was just like such a like, oh goodness. And then I thought, oh god, this is too much. So I looked, I'm just going to stay in the comfort of art. And then I realized art Twitter's always having a battle. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to just focus on something that makes me happy. Oh, I like drawings of Final Fantasy VII. I especially like drawings of Cloud and Tifa together. I just like it. I just like it. They're
Yeah.
my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started following that, and I realized
Oh.
they're having fights with people who
God.
like Cloud and Aerith. And I'm just like, so I went from like, oh, like this experience that was harrowing, and I thought, oh, it's just solely this subject. And then I went through, every aspect of the internet fights. Even something as simple as like a shipping, they have shipping wars. And I'm like, oh, it's not any unique thing or any unique discussion. It's anything.
The world. It's the world.
It's literally social media
Yeah.
that pushes the algorithm, that the algorithms, people are always talking about the algorithms not favoring artwork, and it's true, it favors drama.
Yeah.
And hot
I mean,
takes.
like, it's one of these things I've came across because the job I now have,
Yeah.
right? So Matt left his time at DreamWorks and Disney and
Yeah.
and formed his own company. And what we were building is a card battle game, right? But you buy the cards through NFTs.
Yeah.
So we are
Yeah.
essentially making an NFT video game.
Yeah.
But then we use specifically the blockchain of Wax because we know it's more eco-friendly. Because the whole thing that came up initially was it was bad because everything was through Ethereum, right? Which is one of the worst. But now because cryptos have expanded and there's more things, there's different ways to mine that. So yeah, it's like you said, have a discussion within our community. Like I know people who are like, it's the worst thing ever, it's going to ruin the planet. And I'm like, well, dude, like there's oil rigs off the coast of Puerto Rico right now who are dumping 5.5 tons of crude oil into the sea. Like, I don't think that's going to offset as much as you think versus making a picture and selling it online. You know what I mean? Like there is a comparison for everything, but like when you put it all into perspective, exactly.
Yeah, like the conversation I was trying to have, like, was I was very interested back then, and I still am, on how companies will, get to work with NFTs, right? Because this is a new technology and it offers the ability to have residuals. So at the time you'd had companies like, for example, DC was publishing NFTs via Vivi of artist work. And artists weren't even talked with about to do this. They just did it. And that's unfortunately due to the work for hire contracts that do not allow you to get any kind of royalties for this. But royalties in secondary sale markets is where all these companies, like, this is where you can make a lot of money. And it's something that should be shared and must be shared with artists. And the NFT space, for whatever love or hate may have, at the very least, artists do get a big chunk of the profits. But that can change very quickly. And you need companies to set precedents, right? To be like, oh, let's say if like DC or Marvel go even harder on this, like they need artists to say, hey, I know about the technology and I want it to be, and I want these type of percentage of residuals. You need it because like this is how it's the standard of the space, and we need to take that into companies, because once they come out, that's it. Like, and they are gonna come out. Like every company I know is trying to figure this out, and it's either and it's like there was a lot of people that are like, oh, it's gonna go away. It's like, no.
I mean, like the fact that like people like Gary Vee are talking about it, like Visa's just got behind it. Like, there's so many, and like even with our company, I mean, we're attracting venture capitalists at the moment for the company because we're making an NFT video game, right? That's right on the cusp of what everybody's trying to do. So we're the guys who are like, we want to get behind this, we want to help you, we want to make something like that. So I mean, I think it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere, and I think people just need to either, you don't have to get involved, but then you don't have to hate the people who do get involved, because it's just at this point another way of expressing your art. And like you said, I know people who were poor for decades living off their art, and then on one evening they made $100,000 off one piece, and now they can pay their mortgage off. Like, I mean,
It's amazing.
there's
hmm
great things that come for these
hmm
things. It's not all evil.
There's,
So
yeah,
yeah,
I think more so than anything, and I don't even get a little nervous to talk about it, but it's like one of those things where eventually we're gonna have to talk about it, right?
yeah,
Um, but it's one of those things where it's like there's a lot of good, there's a lot
of
of bad, there's a lot of in
course,
between.
yep.
And it's the ability to have a,
Adult conversation.
yeah, exactly. And to be able to say, like, for example, the environmental aspect when it came out, I do agree that, like, if all of crypto went away, like, we'd
Hmm.
still be fucked.
Yes.
Because it doesn't erase the fact that, 100 companies emit 70% of all global emissions. And
Yep.
I took a look at those companies. They're all energy companies, they're all oil companies. And then
Yep.
the occasional Netflix, Amazon, which, if, so that's a thing.
Mhm.
But you
Yes.
could say, well, Karla, yes, but you should still, as an individual, make better choices. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a matter of, okay, well, yes, like ETH, is a proof of work, chain for now. I think, like, they said in June 2022, which we'll see, they're going to transition to
Hmm.
proof of stake. And for those,
Right.
who don't know, proof of stake is a different way where, like, the blockchain reaches consensus, which is basically all the nodes agree that they're correct. and it, like, some of them can get as efficient as, like, oh, any transaction is like turning on a light. Some of them can run in, like, machinery, or like in, like, a Raspberry Pi, which is basically like powered, like, using your cell phone, and that's an entire blockchain. So, like, it's getting to be more efficient.
Mhm.
Bitcoin has no plans of being efficient. That's proof of work. But so, like, let's say you're still like, oh, but ETH and you doing this, that's still very harmful. But,
Mhm.
like, number one, I don't believe that individual choices,
Mhm.
uh the individual should be held accountable
Mhm.
for, saving the planet. Because number one, and I
Mhm.
got really deep into it because I researched a lot on this. And number one,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
actually a specific and explicit tactic from oil companies to.
Have you watched Climate Town by any chance?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
I've just read a lot of, like, The Guardian has a lot of really great articles
yeah.
on
Yeah.
this, and I follow a lot of, like, environmental scientists. And so that's a specific thing that they do, so that they shift
Yeah.
away public ire from,
Yes.
from them, who they're the real companies.
Yes.
So I don't believe in that. But if you were to even to really say no, but you really should, then okay,
Mm.
then when you ever stream, whenever
Mhm.
you watch someone streaming, whenever
Mhm.
you watch a whole series on Netflix, whenever you
Yeah.
watch anything, or for example, I work for Disney.
Mhm.
Disney Plus is a, the from when it takes, from the moment
Mhm.
I send my concept out to the
Mhm.
moment that it goes onto the big screen, that is a
Mhm.
shit ton of energy consumed, because you
Of course.
have, a production, how much energy does so there's,
Mhm.
if you want to, or even people who eat meat, like, that's a
Mhm.
huge energy drain. So it's one of those things, yes, it's one of those things where it's like, we can fall into a trap of saying,
Mhm.
well, no, that
Mhm.
thing, and I've seen some people say, well, that
Mhm.
thing that they did is worthless. But
Mhm.
is it?
Yeah.
Like, to who? The people that are buying
Mhm.
it don't think it's worthless. And
Yeah.
when you talk about NFT, yes, there are speculative aspects of it that I'm not a fan
Mhm.
of. But
Of course.
you're still talking about someone's artwork. That's the end
Yeah.
product. Is that worthless? So
Mhm.
it's a matter, but what I will say, and I know I've been hogging the conversation quite a lot, but I will
No.
say,
No. 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 On you go.
yeah, but what I will
Mhm.
say is that I do appreciate the criticisms because they're valid. Like, right, like, for
Mhm.
example, no matter how we feel about it, we do have to transition into more, like, energy savvy and energy, smart consumption of energy society. So every
Of course.
step that we can take to do that is great. So
Mhm.
the ire that people had, um,
Mhm.
did push companies to be like, we're going to wait until it's environmentally friendlier. And it did help other side chains, other blockchains entirely, to be able to market and say, hey, we're better, environmentally. And that gives a demand for that. And I think that's quite good. For example, but where I do think people go wrong is attacking individuals, because individuals have no power. Now, if like they were to be like, hey, massive company, like for example, OpenSea has massive issues with art theft. Hey, and if people were to rage on OpenSea, who they're all on Twitter, by the way, and be like, hey, and they're all very active. Hey, you need to solve this issue, because this is not great. This is untenable. You cannot allow this kind of theft to continue. Then OpenSea would be put in a position where they have an angry public, and they would at least try and attempt to solve the issue, and that would be very helpful. But when you but it doesn't help anything when you say, did you know that like people steal art to artists who artwork has probably been stolen? So it's a myriad of things. It is a complex subject because the technology itself, it's not easy to understand. And the articles that have come out have not done their best at explaining it, or are missing information, or are old enough in a space that changes in the blink of an eye. But I do think it's a technology that we have to understand, and more so than anything, that we have to, even if we don't want to engage with it, that we at least know enough about it to demand better conditions for artists. Because I do think that companies are going to jump in, and I do think that our industry will be shaped by this eventually. Maybe not right now, but 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from now, it's going to become more common than we know. And we're in a very interesting space where we can shape it to be however we want to be. But if we shut it down, and if we say this is purely evil, then what does is that seeds ground to the people who really truly don't care, who really are very shitty, and say, hey, no, I will take your art and I will make hella money, and you're not going to get any of it. And so that's the issue.
100%.
I'm still nervous to talk about it, not gonna lie, because people will be like, I cannot believe that.
Ridiculous. I mean, like, if anybody's not went to this person there's a YouTube channel called Climate Town, right? And the guy who runs that is environmental scientist, both degree and master's qualified, and he's done several really great videos. And the funniest thing, is almost like a stand-up comedian. He makes them super funny, super interesting to watch. I've sent you the link in my chat thing, but he's done a whole video on carbon footprinting, right? And the whole thing where oil barons and people like Oxon basically pass the buck on to the individual, where like it's your fault the planet's dying, you need to do something about it as an individual. But then we're like, you're billion-dollar gas and oil companies, we cannot change the world on the level you can. Like, if you change or dump oil one day, that's going to offset our carbon footprint by like 50 years. There's no way we can win. So the whole idea that NFTs are evil and we inherently are evil for taking advantage of that technology is bullshit, in my opinion. I wouldn't have went to work for Matt in this game and this project if we're doing stuff beyond the NFT space. We're also making video games and working on movies and animated series. But the NFT space right now, we chose to go on wax because it was cleaner, because it was something that was more efficient. And I see it as a way for people, especially with the wax blockchain, to take power back, because the whole wax blockchain was invented for gamers, so that when you buy a skin or an item, you can take that item and play it in multiple games, not just the one you buy it for. And I think it's a way of people taking power back. So that's my 2 cents in it. And I think Karla articulated it great.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, again, like the debates are good, and obviously we've already put the caveat that anything of basic human rights, no debate necessary. There's a very clear moral stance to that. But when it comes to subjects like, for example, technology, the way that I see technology is a tool to be utilized. There are some technologies that I do wish didn't exist, like, for example, nuclear bombs and things like that, where it's like, our world would probably be a better place without it. Maybe, but someone will probably say, but it's a deterrent, and maybe, who knows? But I do know that, like, the technology is out, and it's a tool to be utilized for either good or bad, either in unethical or ethical ways.
Mhm.
And I think it's one of those things where it's like debate is good because it does help us, kind of
Mhm.
see the failings of something. Like, oh,
Yep.
for example, why is this, so energy consumption,
Mhm.
and it's mostly ETH because wax
Yeah.
isn't that.
Yeah.
Solana isn't that. Near isn't
Yeah.
that. So many
Yeah.
blockchains aren't that, but
Mhm.
specifically ETH, which is the big one, and that's where the big
Mhm.
collectors are.
Mhm.
um and that pushed the people, and they've already been transitioning to proof of stake for quite a while, but
Yeah.
that puts it in a bigger spectrum and a bigger
Mhm.
urgency to it, because now companies are hesitant to join unless they don't want the PR nightmare. So that's a good thing
Mhm.
that came out of that debate.
Mhm.
Other things that are good about it, like making sure that, like, the space does follow through and does
Mhm.
you know help artists, because the
Mhm.
the idea is, oh, this doesn't help artists, but then that
Mhm.
puts the people who are creating these things to be like, no, I will help artists. And so you'll
Mhm.
see an escalation of artist-led movements where it's like,
Mhm.
no, this is how we are better, this is how, because they
Mhm.
want to prove something.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, it is good overall to, you know, understand the criticisms and where it comes from and really try and shift things to be better. Where I think, again, it does fail and it is kind of bullshitty is when you try to place things as this is inherently evil. Because then now people who are excited for it, people who see it differently than you, people who might want to even not even like engage fully, but are wanting to push things in better direction, those people are now evil. And you can't
Yeah.
be around evil people. And if you can't
Mhm.
be around evil people, then that gives you an excuse to treat them like shit because in your mind they're evil. It gives you an
Yeah.
excuse to ostracize, kick them out of your community because they're
Mhm.
evil.
Mhm.
And it puts you in a position where no matter how things evolve, for
Mhm.
either good or bad, and in the
Mhm.
way that these technologies are and then the people that are pushing them, it all
Mhm.
depends on them. But let's say that it does evolve and it becomes really great.
Mhm.
Overall there's still going to be bad players anywhere, just as there are bad players in any industry and in any
Yep.
specifically financial industry, for
Of
sure.
course. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
uh but now it's a thing that's commonly used, but you put yourself in a position where, like, no, but this is evil and it's commonly used, and little by little you'll ostracize yourself, and
Yeah.
that's no way to live.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I just don't think, because I've had conversations with people who online are very like, "Oh, I hate it," but
Mhm.
one-on-one it was a
Mhm.
good solid conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this could be great, this could be bad,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
at the very least, I'm very pro artist.
Mhm.
So I share when my friends, who've been toiling at industries and working themselves
Mhm.
to a bloody pulp, are like, hey, now I can say yes to whatever project, or I can finally pay my mortgage, or I can
Yeah.
finally pay health bills, like that to me is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Well said, Carla. Well said. Well, I think on that point, it's probably good to end it there. But like, yeah, I think there's a whole industry of questions to unpack there. But
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, what it came down to is just don't be a dick. Like
Just,
that's
I
the
know, right? Like at the end of the
yeah.
day, we can agree, we can
Mm,
disagree, we can
mhm.
even disagree strongly, but just
Yeah.
don't be a dick unless it's
Yeah.
like someone who has very solid human rights,
Yeah.
like and wants to go against human rights and thinks certain group of people shouldn't live. Then
Yeah.
you can get away with being a bit of a dick.
Yeah. 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 Don't be a dick to nice people. Is what we're probably saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
Or,
yeah.
or even then, like, I think there's something wonderful about being a good human and
Mhm.
trying to make a place better even when
Yep.
it wasn't better, and
Yep.
that's a philosophy I abide by. Like, even when
Same.
people are cruel, there's
Mhm.
always a chance for redemption. They have to obviously want that, they have to obviously
Yeah.
recognize that. But you know just just treat your fellow men and women, they, them, everywhere in between, just good, and that's it. That's all it is.
It's a great holiday message, Karla.
Yay!
It really is. God bless us, everyone.
Everyone, yay!
Yay.
We end it with
yay.
a holiday hug.
Yay! Well, if you've made it this far, guys, thank you for listening. Damn, that's been a whole hour and 45 we've talked, and it's been crazy good. Damn.
Look at us.
If you want to check out, look at us, indeed. If you want to check out Karla's work, I will leave all of her links below. You can go and check out her stuff. And if you guys have any questions again, come down to the comment section on YouTube and leave me some pretty comments that I can feed back to, some likes, some subscribes, all that shit. And from both me and Karla, we hope you guys have an awesome holiday season and a great Christmas. And thanks for checking out the interview. And thank you again to Karla for coming on.
Yay! Thanks for having me. Happy
you're
holidays, everyone.
welcome.
Yay!
Happy holidays, guys. Okay, bye, guys.